Welcome to the Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society. My name is Jimmy Hurt, and I will be your presenter today. Our webpage is on Facebook. We're listed as Farmville Prince Edward Historical Society. Included on our webpage is our contact information. You can also see it here. I want to remind you that the public is always welcome to attend our meetings. We urge you to send your email address to us so we can notify you when our meeting times are. We normally meet at the Farmville train station, and our meetings normally start at 7 p.m. However, we do not meet every month. People are coming in the door. As you can see, we often have large crowds. As you can see, Dan's bringing out more chairs. Our October the 18th meeting was standing room only. At our meetings, we usually try to have an intermission, which gives our audience time to get up, move around, and visit with the people there at the train station. It's kind of a social event as well as a history event. At most meetings during our intermission, we offer sweets, treats, and desserts, often homemade cookies. Since October was near Halloween, we featured yummy Halloween treats. Homemade cookies were the treats for October. We end our meeting by having a door prize giveaway. Since it was near Halloween, we used the Halloween theme and had lots and lots of door prizes. So we had a Halloween theme for our door prizes in October. The October program was researched and presented by Jimmy Hurt, Caroline Stowers, and Kay Whitfield. We would like to thank everyone that contributed photos and information to our committee. We also thank the folks that contributed information and corrections at our presentation on Tuesday night, October the 18th. Thanks for your help. Here are our speakers, Caroline, Kay, and myself. Lots of smiles, lots of interacting with the audience. We like to have fun during our meetings. Kay and Caroline smile as we get down to business. Here we are, meeting, greeting, and interacting with our audience. Often we get good information from our audience. Kay and Caroline getting down to business. More meeting and greeting. The intermission is about over. Get back to business. Just a reminder, this is an MP movie. You can use your pause button to stop and read the documents and newspaper clippings and the maps. Once you've read or looked over your information, hit the forward button and move on to the next slide. Okay? The original purpose of Historic Farmville Incorporated was a revitalization of the downtown storefronts. Here's an article that appeared in the January 16, 1985 Farmville Herald. Here's a picture which appeared in the Farmville Herald showing some of the original members. They are Dickie Crawley, Monroe Evans, Thelma Motley, Tom Parrott. As you can see, they're holding up banners which show the proposed storefronts. Okay, in the next article in the Farmville Herald, January 1985, Historic Farmville adopts facade improvement plan. Again, this was to make downtown Farmville nicer. That was the original purpose of the Historical Society. Two more articles from the Farmville Herald. The first here in the upper left mentions they were collecting photos from the historic district in Farmville. The second article reads, it was noted at the Friday meeting that the survey process necessary in gaining historic district designation from the Historic Landmarks Commission is complete. It goes on to mention the group has taken approximately 500 pictures and designated 500 buildings to be part of the historic district. By doing this, it gave them a better chance of getting the grant money that they were applying for. So, to establish a historic district, one of the requirements was to take pictures of all the buildings in the designated historic area. So I did not find many of the pictures, but I was able to find the negatives from all the pictures that were taken, and they were stored over at Longwood. I went over and got them. Once I was able to find the negatives, I went about changing them from negatives to black and white photos. Here are a few examples of the negative strips that I was able to find. Looks like there's a total of about 500 pictures of old homes and old business locations in Farmville. As you can see, the negatives were a little scratched up, showing a little wear and tear and age, but we were able to use software and bring them back to life. You will see some of these photos in the YouTube video, and they are shown as taken in 1985. Okay, step 2 in applying for the grant money would be to lay out on a map the actual area of the historic district. And here you can see I've highlighted in green the area they proposed to designate as the Farmville Historic District. Zooming in here on the map, you can see they have taken an old town map and hand drawn the locations of each house and each business they propose to be part of the historic district. I have also indicated here with 2 yellow arrows right here where the areas that we concentrated on in our first meeting on October the 18th, which were the houses with house numbers 600, starting with 600. So here, this is the area we talked about at our first meeting. The area in green is the proposed historic district. Zooming in a little closer, you can see the hand-drawn homes again, and the area of interest for our first meeting was the 600 block of High Street, with a star beside each location that we discussed. In this particular YouTube video, we're going to be speaking of 600 High Street and 604 High Street. With approximately 500 locations, I wanted to say why we considered using High Street for our first research area. Why was High Street considered the main road through Farmville? Here we go. High Street here is highlighted with the red ink, and 3rd Street going from west to east is highlighted in yellow. And today we would, if we were coming into Farmville from the west over here, we would go right on down the yellow line here, which is 3rd Street, cross Main, and go on out eastward towards Rice or Richmond on 3rd Street. However, as far back as 1939, 3rd Street had not been built completely all the way through here, and so High Street was used as the main entrance in from the west, coming into Farmville, going right on down here to Main Street. Here on this slide, I need to point out a couple of things. 3rd Street was not completed all the way through Farmville until 1939 approximately. So where these blue marks are, these blue X's on both ends of 3rd Street, these were not completed until about 1939. Originally, 3rd Street ran from the train station down to about Bridge Street. So the people coming into Farmville from the west would use either High Street, like I pointed out, coming right down to the intersection and then down to Main Street, or they would come in on Buffalo Street, go up and across here at Carter's Flower Shop intersection, and on down and on to High Street here at the Monument Methodist Church area. If you were going on to, say, Rice or Richmond, you would drop down onto Main Street, go about a half a block, and then Longwood Avenue would take you on out to Rice. That's how the old roads were. Okay, so here is the area we concentrated on at our first meeting, the 600 block. We talked about the intersection here at the intersection of High Street, Oak Street, Griffin Boulevard, and Appomattox Street. Appomattox Street shown here in orange. I wanted to point out at one time you could leave the intersection and drive straight over to the Appomattox River without interruption. In 1939, when this part of 3rd Street was completed, Appomattox Street had to be cut here. So now Appomattox is a 2-part street. You can no longer go straight across there. In this slide, I wanted to point out that High Street is often referred to as either Upper High Street, which is from this intersection here up going this way, is Upper High Street. going down towards Main Street is often referred to as Lower High Street, and there the street number is 500 down to 100. There we go. Okay. Parrot, and they are holding up poster boards, it seems, that show the new facades that they have planned for the downtown business district. In order to do that, they need to apply for a grant. And to apply for a grant and get approved, they need to establish what's called a historic district in Farmville. As you'll see here in this slide, the group is again published in the Farmville Herald. Their plans for getting this historic district established is laid out here in this article. And if you hit the pause button, you can stop and read it. It basically just is an update to the previous Farmville Herald article. Another article soon appeared in the Farmville Herald, which mentions Old Main Street photos are needed. There they were calling for anyone who had pictures of the old downtown stores or the residential area to get the photographs to them. But it also mentions that they had a meeting on Friday. The survey process was underway. They were trying to gain historic district designation from the Historic Landmarks Commission. In order to do that, they had to go around Farmville, take pictures of all the old stores, the old homes that they wanted to designate as the historic district. They were hoping that to get a grant approved, and they were also hoping that the homes and businesses that were designated in this district might have a possible tax break for doing the restoration work in the future. Okay. So I learned that the group had taken approximately 500 pictures of the homes and the businesses that they had designated as part of the historical district. So I wasn't able to find the actual pictures, but I was able to get hold of the negatives. They were stored over at Longwood with the other Historical Society items. I went to Longwood, I retrieved the negatives, and as you can see here, I copied all the slides, all the negatives onto slides. Then I was able to enlarge them and process the individual negatives into black and white photographs. Okay. As you can see, the slides here are mixed all in with the houses, but it seems to be the complete set of the 500 or so photographs that were taken back in 1985. Here's a good look at the slides. I've blown up the picture here so you can see the condition of the negatives. They were a little worn, showing their age a bit, but ran them through Photoshop, and I was able to bring them back to fairly nice black and white photographs. These black and white photographs, we then decided to use them to make programs about the old homes in Farmville. We decided to start with High Street, the homes on High Street, and I will move on to the next slide here. The next step in getting all the materials together to get this grant was actually getting a old town map and designating on the map the homes and businesses which were to be declared as part of the historic district. Here's a close-up look at the maps, and you can see where they were taking the map and hand drawing in each of the 500 or so that they had designated as historic buildings or homes. I'm not sure exactly how many homes and businesses it ended up being within this historic district, and also not really sure of. I know they got the grant and got the facades downtown done, but we're really not sure where the historic district stands today. Are there restrictions? What are the restrictions, if any? Today's historical society, as far as I know, we do not have any knowledge of where it stands today. In this slide, though, you will see that for our first meeting or presentation, we concentrated on 6 homes in the 600 block of High Street, which are basically located at the intersection of Oak Street, High Street, Appomattox, and these two yellow arrows. We worked right in between the 2 yellow arrows, basically. So, why was High Street considered the main road through Old Farmville? Well, when we looked at all the streets and all the homes we wanted to talk about, we decided to basically concentrate on High Street first, because High Street was considered the main road through Farmville back years ago, and I'm going to tell you about that in the following slides. Here's the actual town map that was used in 1985, and I wanted to point out that the map they had was pretty much all they had in 1985, but this 85 map differs from how the streets really were in Farmville years ago, and I will point out the changes to you here next. The yellow line on this map indicates 3rd Street as we see it today, and using the yellow line, if we came in from the western part of Farmville out near the fire station hospital area, and you wanted to get over to Rice, you would simply go up, follow the yellow line all the way through Farmville, cross Main Street, go on past the post office, and on out towards Rice and Richmond area. But that was not how it was prior to 1939. Prior to 39, 3rd Street wasn't completely finished, and it did not connect all the way through the town of Farmville. So the way to get through Farmville in the early days was you would start out, say, at the hospital area, come down and follow the red line through the intersection at Appomattox and High Street, and then on down High Street to Main Street. That was the main way to get into Farmville from the west. Okay, to explain this slide, you'll notice that 3rd Street is marked by a yellow line with blue X's at both ends. The area with the blue X's was not built until after 1939. So it left 2 ways to come into Farmville from the western end. You would take the green line, which is Buffalo Street, starting at about the current day firehouse. You would go up and around, cross near where Carter's Flower Shop is, follow Buffalo Street down to the Methodist Church or the Monument area, which will bring you out onto High Street. Or the other option was following the red line. You'll come up the area near the hospital, come on down to the intersection, and then on down past the Methodist Church and on down to Main Street. Should someone have wanted to continue on to Rice or Richmond area, you'd have taken a little bit of Main Street and then again turned left, and you would have gone up what is now Longwood Avenue, and that would have carried you on out the other end of town towards Rice or Richmond. Okay? On this slide, I also wanted to point out to you Appomattox Street, which from the intersection on High Street at Oak Street, High Street, Griffin Boulevard, there's also Appomattox Street. Prior to 1939, as indicated by the orange line on this map, Appomattox Street at one time was a continuous street from High Street all the way over to the Appomattox River. However, when they built or extended 3rd Street westward in 1938-39, they had to cut Appomattox Street into two sections. So now you have two parts of Appomattox Street which run right down through almost the train station parking lot. Now, in this slide, I wanted to point out that you might hear High Street referred to as Upper High Street or Lower High Street. The split basically comes at the intersection of Appomattox, Oak Street, Griffin Boulevard, and High Street. From where you see the red dot upward is considered Upper High Street, and red dot down is Lower High Street with the street numbers 500 down to 100. Okay. Okay, we'll start off here by talking about house number 600, which is a Yoelin residence. It's located at the intersection of Oak Street, Appomattox Street, High Street, and Griffin Boulevard. Alright, there were two governors early on that had ties to Farmville. They were Governor McKinney and Governor O'Farrell. McKinney lived on Beach Street. That was his connection to Farmville. He was followed by Charles O'Farrell. Alright, McKinney served first. Then, after McKinney came Governor Charles T. O'Farrell of Richmond. He was governor from 1894 to 1898. His importance is his daughter married J. Taylor Thompson of Farmville in 1909. Mr. Thompson and his wife, Helen O'Farrell, lived in Farmville on St. George Street for a few years. Then, they had a new home constructed at 600 High Street in 1913. The home was completed in 1914. At a meeting on Tuesday night, Adam Yoelin and his wife Ann Bailey were as speakers. They came to personally tell us about their two homes on High Street, house number 600 and the adjoining house 604. 600 and his home at 604. How about that? You want to come up and use this mic?
Do this together?
Don't have much slack in that, but there it is.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thanks for, this is wonderful. We actually were just commenting that when we moved in 2013, we didn't realize our house was 100 years old then. We thought it was built in 1927, so this is kind of fun to hear new facts about the home. Prior to coming to Farmville, we lived in Richmond, and I'll just tell you a cute little story about 600 High Street where we live. I was an adjunct instructor at Longwood at the time, so I would teach one night a week. I would drive up from Richmond, and when I applied for the full-time job at Longwood, I started coming up a little early. And I would drive around Farmville looking, just kind of daydreaming for houses if we moved here. And I kept driving around the intersection looking at 600 High Street. There was a for sale sign. And I didn't say anything to Adam because it's, you know, we weren't sure if we were moving here. And then one day when I was at work, he drove to Farmville and he came back and he said, I went to Farmville today. And he had a picture of 600 High Street. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's meant to be. So we both fell in love with the same house. And so we moved in May 2013. And for the first 6 months, we lived in our downstairs dining room because the upstairs was being redone, I guess we could say. We have touched every room in our home, and most recently just finished renovating the kitchen. And Adam has practiced on our home before he started working on my parents' home next door. But I'll let you talk about that one.
Okay. This is amazing, and thank you very much, Jimmy, and everybody else in the Historical Society. This is eye-opening and beautiful. Let's see, we thought it was from 1927. And so now we're very disappointed that we don't get to throw a 100-year party. We will have to throw a 100 and several year party. It was in disrepair when we got a hold of it. It had sat vacant for a couple of years. Mary and John Thornton had lived there before us. And it took a lot of work. We started on the outside and redid the landscaping, and then we fixed up on the inside. Plaster, by the way, is no fun to work with. And every time you open up a wall, there's 5 or 6 other things you have to do to close it up. But we did. We modernized it. We insulated every wall we could put in there. We thought it was a metal roof originally because there were still metal parts of it, red. And we decided to return that to the original condition and put another metal roof, but blue on it this time. The garage, which I heard was called the carriage house back in the day, actually has these really nice grooves in the cement from the bottom, so from the years of use. But it was failing because the Bruces had put in a pool in the backyard, big cement pool, and it put a lot of hydrostatic pressure on the land. It's all stable now, just so you know. But for a couple of years, we were worried it was going to flood town hall, like if it broke. So then we had an opportunity to purchase the 604 house, which was a fraternity before we got a hold of it. We used to share the driveway with some boys who were very nice, but they would throw parties. And that was a lot more work to be done because it was an older house, Victorian. But we got it done after 2 years, and her parents live there now. We affectionately call the houses Fort Awesome and Fort Bravo. But respect that this history as the Lancaster home and the Thompson home originally, absolutely. Remarkable seeing pictures of people who've lived there before us, without a doubt. But like my wife said, it was meant to be. We came from Richmond, and we consider ourselves house people. We always took care of the homes we lived in, or the house we lived in Richmond, and we really wanted to get it back to the original, if not better, condition. So that's what we did. That's what we did.
Also could be on the garden tour.
And we're on the garden tour, I guess.
There's awards on the Christmas house tour.
Oh, the Christmas house tour. That's 604 will be on the Christmas house. Oh, you all like the Christmas lights in the tree?
Yeah.
All right, we'll put that up there. Yeah, that was a really fun project we did. And we had seen that first down in Charlotte, North Carolina, when we were visiting her brother, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And we thought it would be a nice little addition to that corner. And I'm really pleased with the way it turned out, the way people seem to really enjoy that. She won't let me work on the roof anymore. She keeps me on the ground. That's a good idea. But it's a beautiful home. It's wonderful on the inside. It has coppered ceilings on the main room downstairs when you walk in. And we have a dog now. I'm just going to share this with you. When you walk in that front door, there's this beautiful staircase that comes down in the back of the room. And I always thought that was for the lady of the house to make an entrance. When, guests came over, she would come elegantly down the stairs. Well, now at 6 o'clock in the morning, when we go to walk the dog, she sits on those stairs until we're ready to go. And then we have to call her again, and she comes down the stairs very elegantly. And it's really opened up our
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Making sure we're still recording. Okay.
Okay, as far as we know, Sidney C. Newman and his wife Catherine G. Newman took over the home or the property there at 600 High Street about or around 1948. And there's Mr. and Ms. Newman here on the right, seated. And let's take a look here at a close-up of Mr. Newman. We have that picture. And wanted to call to your attention, they had a son. Many of us knew Sid Newman. He was very active with the airport in Farmville. In fact, the new Farmville airport is named after Sid Newman. And he was also, in his later life, Mayor Newman. He just passed away a few years ago. The Newman family to Farmville in about 1908, and they came here from Hanover County to establish or be a part of the milling operations in Farmville. So that was their original intent. And as time went on, the Newman family developed Newman Ice Company, as you see in this photo, then Newman Coal Company, and later, which most people today remember, was Newman Cement Company. Okay, moving on, 600 High Street. Here we'll show you a few pictures of the actual home itself. Let's take a look. And finally, there's the picture of the home taken in 1985 by the Original Historical Society. And moving on, this is what I call the canon information, or the canon slide. Back in really going back to World War I, there was a drive, or a fund drive, called the Liberty Fund. And with the Liberty Fund, trains would come through Farmville They would have big meetings at the train station, and people would hear speakers from out of town about raising money for World War I. After the war was over, around 1925 or so, the Liberty Fund people sent a train from town to town to town, and they were given items from over in Europe that were captured by the enemy. Each town along the route would get a trophy item, you might say. And in late 1925, the town of Farmville had a train come through and unload a World War I German cannon, and there's it is in the picture there. Also, this information was supplied by Dr. Ray Gaskins, and he points out that in November of 25, the cannon was dedicated at the intersection of High Street, Oak Street, Appomattox Street, and at the time Eli Street, which is now Griffin Boulevard. As time went on, the cannon got painted different colors, mainly red or pink, and it was a prank that the Longwood girls would sneak up there and paint the cannon different colors. No big deal, but that was what was going on in 1928. And by 1932, the use of the automobile in Farmville was picked up, and the people using this intersection had started complaining and writing and calling the Farmville Herald that this cannon was a hazard. And evidently the town council took it up, decided it was needed to be moved, and the cannon, as far as we know, was moved over a couple blocks to what we now call Grove Street Park, and it was stored over there until World War II, they say. And just as World War II was going to start, or had started, they were having scrap metal drives to collect metal for the World War II ammunition and different needs. So it is said that the cannon disappeared because it was given to the scrap metal drive. So by 1935, Mr. Gaskin says that there were no more cannon pictures. This slide shows that I want to point out that H.D. Morin Construction Company in 1913, which led over into 1914, had two major construction jobs going on at the same time. One was the house here at 600 High Street. Simultaneously, they were building the Baptist Church on Main Street. The contractor had to tear down the old church that sat there, and by 1914, they were constructing the new Baptist church as you see it today. Early in that research, we had a time trying to figure out who built this house at 600 High Street. It wasn't until I discovered this picture in a 1927 Farmville Herald that it put us on the track to researching J. Taylor Thompson. Turns out the Thompson family were the original builders of the house at 600 High Street, as I said, during the years of 1913 and 1914. Close-up picture there with the cannon, and we at the time we couldn't figure out how far back that house went, but we did figure out it was built in 1913, and this picture was taken in 1925. Here again, you might want to use your pause button if you want to read about the Thompson-O'Farrell wedding. This basically talks about J. Taylor Thompson marrying the former governor's daughter, Helen Walton O'Farrell in 1909. It's also mentioned that Lucy K. Dunnington, who was from Farmville, daughter of the Dunningtons who owned Poplar Hill at the time, or the Dunnington Mansion out on 15 South. The Dunningtons were part of the wedding. They were guests, and in another article I found where it mentioned several times that the O'Farrell family visited the Dunnington Mansion out on Route 15 South, and they would come up for events and parties. So we gather that the O'Farrells and the Dunningtons and other people here in Farmville were in close contact with the governor before and during his years as governor. Here are two pictures I was able to find of J. Taylor Thompson. Here is the obituary. Again, you may want to pause and read it. It indicates he died around October 13th, 1949. I did read that he had actually worked as a lawyer from 1910 up to about 1946 when he was taken ill and was no longer able to work. And we think that the home, sometime between 1946 when he was ill up until his death, sometime during that period, we're guessing about 1948, that the home was sold to the Newman family at that time. But there is all the information. Here's an article also I found in another older newspaper which mentions the O'Farrell wedding, the information on Taylor Thompson, and a copy of an ad run by Lee and Thompson, which was J. Taylor Thompson and Henry Lee of Crewe. It seems that Mr. Thompson, who was a lawyer in Farmville, also had a partner at one time who was located in Crewe, so they had a partnership going on with one lawyer in Crewe and one lawyer in Farmville. And there again, you may want to pause and look at some of that. Here is the second owners, as far as we can tell, with Sidner C. Newman and his wife Catherine G. Newman. And let's see. Here's a close picture of Mr. Newman. I wanted to point out one more time, we had those two early Virginia governors, McKinney and O'Farrell, and I wanted to remind you that McKinney lived over on Beach Street, and here's a picture of his home, and he was followed by another Democratic governor, Mr. O'Farrell, and his significance was his daughter in 1909 married J. Taylor Thompson, who lived at 600 High Street. Moving on. We're going to now speak of house street number 604, which is also owned by the Yoelin family, and Ann Bailey's parents live at 604 High Street. Let's move on to that house. Here we go. It's often around town, or used to be called the Lancaster House, and I'm going to show you a few pictures of it here. Here we go. We can get it to work. There we go. Partially hidden by trees a lot during the year, but there it is, sitting up high on the hill. Here we go. A little bit better shot of it. with the corner here on the right side. As you'll see, there's a rounded part of the building there. I think we said that we were going to call that the Truett. Let's get another picture going here. There we go. And moving on to another picture. There's a good shot without the trees in the way. This is a picture taken just about a month ago. You can see it's been newly renovated by the Yoelins, and the roof is now blue. The front porch has been added all the way across the front and down the side there. Nice picture of that house. Done well. This picture was also recently taken, and again across the front you can see where the porch was extended down to the left there. And coming up here is a picture taken in 1914 here on the left, and of course it looks like in the wintertime you can see it a lot better. And notice the wall had not been built yet, and here's a picture of it on the right, what it looks like today. And let's see if we can advance on. There's a close-up picture of the house from 1914. At the time it had a fence down the left-hand side, and when this picture was taken, it's probably still under construction, and the sidewalk hadn't even been put in yet. I want to point out that this house, we believe, was built in 1903, and it also, like the house next to it, was this house was built by the H.D. Moore Construction Company of Farmville. See if we can move on. This is a picture that was taken by the original Historical Society. So this is one of the pictures developed from those negatives I showed you. So this picture was taken in 1985. And let's move on. What do we got here? Okay, the home was built in 1903. Home built by H.D. Moore and contractor of Farmville. And let's see if it'll show us another picture here. Yep. This picture was taken before the renovation, and you can see the old roof was originally red. Same with this picture right here. This was a nice springtime picture, and a good picture of the Truett on the right. And as you can see here on the left corner, the porch originally was only on the right side of the house, and it was later extended across and around the corner of the house. Okay. Picture that Kay was able to get from the family of the Lancasters, and there's a nice picture of the original owners, we think, which were James P. Lancaster and his family. And in the upcoming slide, Kay will tell you a little bit more about the family, but let's see what this will do here. There we go. Picture of Mr. Lancaster. Gives his date of birth is 1871, and he passed in 1940. Of Mr. Lancaster's obituary. He passed away. He was like age 69. Wanted to point out that he was a retired grocer, had a store downtown, and he also ran a tobacco farm, or a farm tobacco operation outside of Farmville. Also interesting, you may want to stop, pause, and look at this article. It mentions who all of his pallbearers were, and it was noted that most of the people that were his pallbearers also lived nearby or right around High Street. The next slide shows Ms. Lancaster. Her maiden name was Louisa Edmonds Crawley, and here are a couple of pictures of her here. We'll look at them a little closer in the next slide. There's a picture of her that she was an artist. She liked to paint and draw and do different things with art. She often sat, they say, in that Truett section of the house there on the right, the rounded part, and she would paint and draw, and that was her hobby. So let's move on to the next slide, which would be this slide talks about when she had a 90th birthday party, and it was written up in the Farmville Herald. This date was August of 1966. Like I said, she was 90, and she told the reporter that she just didn't want to celebrate any more birthday parties. But let's see. There's a full article. If you want to pause, stop, and read it, there it is. She died at the age of 101, which was in June of 1978. By then, she had moved out to the nursing home, and here is two different copies of two different obituaries which appeared in the local newspaper. He lived to be 69, she lived to be 101, one of the oldest citizens in Farmville. I think they said she was the oldest member of the Farmville Presbyterian Church at the time of her death. Want to mention the past owners of the Lancaster house, how the property changed hands. It looks like after Ms. Lancaster passed away, the home passed to her granddaughter, Louise B. Roberts. It was later sold to a Mr. Red Bannister, who was in Farmville. Mr. Bannister, they said, ran a business in Farmville. Bannister later sold the property to Terry Wood of Farmville. Terry Wood later sold the property to Adam Yoelin and his wife Ann Bailey. And like I said, Ann's parents now reside in the home at 604 High Street. Kay had a personal connection to the Lancaster family, and let's see if we can play a video of Kay sharing her personal knowledge of the Lancaster house. Here we go. Making sure we're still recording. Okay. Okay, onward upward. You want to cut the light out, Phil? I guess you're good with that. We'll show you a couple of pictures of the house. 604. This is where mother and father lived. Ann's mother and father lived. There is a often time during the year, you can't hardly see it now for the trees, but there's a good shot of it. Kay, you want to tell them what that round part of the house is called? Because I don't know.
I don't know. A truet? You know?
A truet.
Or
Turn.
whatever.
Turn. Okay. Turn. We'll settle for
You want me
that.
to talk to that?
I'll let you talk just a second. Okay. Yeah. We'll look at pictures. Another picture. Here's a good picture where you can see it. I took that picture about a month ago. And I want to call your attention to there's a ram insurance there. Kay's going to tell you what went on there. And I want to point out that the porch used to go from there to there. But I guess Adam built it over and back. So you'll notice in some of the pictures that it is different. Another picture. Picture on the left came from, what was her name, Kay?
Louise Price.
Louise Price. Some of you may know her. We think it was taken about 1914. And on the right is a picture that, I don't know who took the one on the right, but it's fairly recent. You can see the porch here was not on, of course, early on, and now it is. But the other thing I was struck with, look how close to the street level it looks compared to later. So we don't know if they cut the street down or if it's just a camera angle. I'm not real sure. But of course, this you can see it better because there's wintertime. The trees also haven't grown up there in 1914. But somebody took this was taken in 1985, and they must have been down on their knees looking up at the house. Kay, you want to tell them how many steps it is?
26 steps.
I guess you used the back door, right? Okay. This home was built by H.D. Moore also. So both Adams and Ann's houses were built by Mr. Moore. Also, right down the street, Dr. Beckham's house was built by Dr. Moore. So he was in the neighborhood at that time. Look at all those steps up nowadays compared to 1914 picture.
So there is a back way to get into that property?
Yes. They share a driveway with Adam, and there's a house beside it, one facing Oak Street, share the same driveway.
No, the property line cuts on the driveway, right at the edge of the driveway.
Did they share it in a way?
No, they have their own driveway on the opposite side.
Okay.
They surely do.
Okay. James P. Lancaster family. This picture was taken about 1915. And Katie, you want to tell them how you came to have all of this? Tell them what you know.
All right, in the picture you see.
Hold the mic up there.
Okay. In the picture you see James P. Lancaster, and his wife was Miss Loulie Lancaster. Her name was Louise Lancaster. She was she was a Crawley. She was Louise Edmonds Crawley, and she was born at Rotherwood, which is out in Prince Edward County. And Mr. Lancaster, he attended Hampden-Sydney College, and she went to the state normal school. It's amazing how educated these people that lived on High Street were. They had two daughters. One was named Frances, and the other was named Mildred. Now, Mr. Lancaster died in 1940, but Miss Loulie Lancaster lived to be 101 years old. And her hobbies were painting. And in that round part where the living room was, you would find her sitting there painting. She also liked to paint coat of arms. And she would also tint photographs. Was one of the things that she liked to do. She had a lot of personality. She was really funny, and she enjoyed living very, very much. Her daughter Frances married a professor that taught at Randolph-Macon College in Ashland. And had one daughter. And that daughter was named Louise for her grandmother. And Louise, when she came to town, Miss Lully would call my mother and I would go play with Louise. So I got to see what the house looked like. And Louise and I remained friends. And when came time to go to college and everything, and I was on campus at William and Mary, lo and behold, I ran into Louise. There she was. And so we've been friends forever. The other lady, the other's daughter, was named Mildred. Now, Mildred worked in Washington, D.C. for the government. And Mildred was very smart. But when her mother became invalid, she came home and took care of her for many, many years. But there's a love story in this picture. Because Mildred had a friend that she had known for many years. After Miss Lully died at 101, Mildred got married again. And Mildred and her husband lived in the house for a little while, and then they both died at the Woodlands. But she did get married again. I mean, she did get married. I thought that was cool.
I'll show you some other pictures here. There's Mr. Lancaster. You want to tell him what he did for a living?
Mr. Lancaster was a grocer, but he also was a tobacco farmer. And he died in 1940, so Miss Lully was a widower lady for a long time.
About
Oh, and they were both, oh yeah, y'all, they were all Presbyterians. They were married in the Presbyterian church and they were buried in the Presbyterian church.
Eddie, Kay, and I went to Presbyterian church together.
Right.
Many, many years ago. Okay, let's see what else got. This is Mr. Lancaster's obituary, and it tells all about who he was into and the pallbearers.
And his pallbearers were Crawley.
Tell them about how Miss Crawley was kin to the Crawleys.
Oh yeah, Ms. Lancaster was the daughter, the 8th child of Richard Crawley. And like I said, she was born at Robberwood. Her mother was in Edmonds, and that's where the Edmonds lived at Robberwood. And she married Richard Crawley, and so Miss Lancaster was Crawley. So she and Dickie are kin.
You look at pallbearers, they were all mostly dead on the street.
Yeah, everybody with a pallbearer lived right around the neighborhood. Yeah. And this is a picture she probably tinted, we figured. And anybody wants to go back and review this on YouTube, you can read all about her. At 90, she was interviewed by the Farmville Herald, and she told them she didn't want to have any more birthdays. And that was in 1966. There's the article. And I like what she said right here. The Bible states, she adds, that the day of death is better than the day of one's birth. And this is her obituary. Again, it tells all about their history, who they're married to, her nickname, and so on. So all that is there for the present day owners. The past owners of this house were, after Miss Lancaster passed away, the home passed to her granddaughter, is that right? Louise B. Roberts. She the lady that got married again?
No,
She's Kay's friend.
she went to William and Mary.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was later sold to Mr. Red Bannister. You want to tell us who Red Bannister was? I don't have.
He ran a store downtown, or she ran a store downtown.
Okay. We don't know a lot about the Bannisters.
A junk store.
And then the property, we think, was sold to Cherry Wood, a farmer. You want to tell them who Cherry Wood is?
Yeah, Mr. Bird's daughter.
Mr. Wood's daughter, okay. Won't elaborate. And who's her sister?
Debbie.
Debbie. Debbie, Kathy.
And Karen.
And,
We got Jennifer.
okay. And Adam, is that who you bought the property?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and we thought that it passed on from Cherry Wood to Adam and his wife, Ann Bailey. And Ann's parents now reside in the home. Okay. This article appeared in the Farmville Herald. We thought we'd just put it in the show here. The Lancasters, it seemed, had an old refrigerator at 604 High Street. A neighbor of the Lancasters, Mr. W.C. Duvall, ran a hardware and appliance store in downtown Farmville in the late 1930s. And in 1937, there seemed to be a contest amongst the Frigidaire dealers, appliance sellers, dealers, and the Duvall took part in it. The Lancasters reported to the Duvall company there that they had a refrigerator. It was a 19 whatever year, and they entered that into the contest. Well, it turns out the Lancasters won the contest. Not only that, they turned out that they had the oldest running refrigerator made by Frigidaire in the state of Virginia. So this article reports that the Frigidaire company awarded the Lancaster family a 1937 brand new model Frigidaire refrigerator. And there's a picture of what it would have looked like. That concludes the report on 600 and 604 High Street. We wanted to mention here that in November, on November the 15th, we plan to have another program at the train station at 7 o'clock, and we'll talk about the homes that were located in the next block up, which would be the 700 block of High Street. And that concludes this presentation, and we want to thank everybody for coming.